Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Monday, November 17, 2025. President Donald Trump says he would sign a bill into law to release all of the files from the federal investigation of the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein if that bill passes Congress. He says he does not want the Epstein issue to be a distraction from all of the legislative accomplishments of the Republican Party. The House Rules Committee could take up the Epstein files release bill today ahead of an expected House floor debate and vote later this week. Federal immigration authorities descend on Charlotte, North Carolina to make arrests. The state's governor, Democrat Josh Stein, says it's not making us safer, it's stoking fear and dividing our community. President Trump talks about immigration when asked about his comment over the weekend that he would meet with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro as the U.S. continues to use military strikes against suspected drug-carrying boats and continues to deploy military assets to the Caribbean. President Trump threatens to endorse primary opponents of Indiana state lawmakers who are Republicans after they hold up a congressional redistricting effort designed to get the Republican Party additional U.S. House seats. Also, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speaks at a food allergy forum in Washington about new research, funding for the causes of food allergies. And the United Nations Security Council votes on a portion of President Trump's Gaza peace plan. New York Times writes the bill seeking the release of the Justice Department's files from the investigation into the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was expected to get a vote in the House as soon as Tuesday after gaining additional momentum among Republicans. President Trump, who campaigned for weeks against the bill, reversed course Sunday, saying, "We have nothing to hide." That was from the New York Times. The president was asked about this today in the White House Oval Office.
Something you posted on Truth Social last night. You urged House Republicans to vote in favor of this Epstein release bill they're going to vote on tomorrow. I just want to be super clear on your position. Do you want to see that pass the Senate? Would you sign that bill if it gets to your desk?
I do want to. Here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this Reid Hoffman, you look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others, they're all Democrats. All I want for people to recognize the great job that I've done on pricing, on affordability, because we brought prices way down, but they're going way lower, on energy, on ending 8 wars and another one coming pretty soon, I believe. We've done a great job. And I hate to see that deflect from the great job we've done. So I'm all for it. You know, we've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that. Unfortunately, like with the Kennedy situation, with the Martin Luther King situation, not to put Jeffrey Epstein in the same category, but no matter what we give, it's never enough. You know, with Kennedy, we gave everything and it wasn't enough. With Martin Luther King, we gave everything and it's never enough. We've already given, I believe the number is 50,000 pages, 50,000 pages. And it's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans. Now, I believe that many of the people that some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. But they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party, including the fact that the Democrats are totally blamed for the shutdown. You know, they cost our country hundreds of billions of dollars with that, at a lot of inconvenience. So I'm for I don't. They can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much because honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. And I don't want to take it away from really the greatness of what the Republican Party has accomplished over the last period of time. Yep.
President Donald Trump holding a news conference in the White House Oval Office. The White House putting out a press release titled, "Where is Democrats' Transparency on Epstein?" that has a number of bullet points, some on Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, also journalist Katie Couric, Democratic donor Reid Hoffman. The president mentioned those people. Also, former President Bill Clinton. That bullet point reads, why aren't Democrats talking about the fact that former President Bill Clinton traveled on Epstein's aircraft 26 times, or the fact that one of Epstein's victims wrote that she saw Clinton on Epstein's island with 2 young women, or the fact that Clinton's visit to the island was corroborated by one of his former top aides. On Capitol Hill, the House Rules Committee could take up the Epstein files release bill now that a discharge petition spearheaded by Republican Thomas Massie of Kentucky and Democrat Ro Khanna of California has succeeded in getting a majority of the House members to sign it, 218, and that does force the hand of House Speaker Mike Johnson. The Rules Committee could meet to set the procedural rules for House floor debate this week. Congressman Jim McGovern of Connecticut is the committee's ranking Democrat.
After months of Republicans blocking transparency, stonewalling in this committee, inventing excuses and trying to block these files from ever coming out, a majority of members of this body have now signed a discharge petition to force a vote. And out of nowhere, miraculously, your leadership is now eager to bring the bill to the floor. We welcome your sudden change of heart. But we know what this is about. Trump gave you all permission. Last week, he was calling people into the Situation Room to try to kill the release of the files. But he knows he failed, and so now, finally, we get a last-minute attempt to try to save face. Guess what? I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when the Senate votes on the release of the files. I'll believe it when he signs the bill into law. And frankly, I'm concerned that even if he does, he's going to try to invent a new excuse to bury, cover up, and block these files from coming out. For months and months, this Republican majority voted time after time after time to cover up for a pedophile. I think it's disgusting. And for the sake of the survivors who deserve accountability and for the public that deserves transparency, these files must come out.
Congressman Jim McGovern, Democrat from Connecticut, ranking member on the Rules Committee at today's Rules Committee meeting, and the committee could today issue a rule that would govern the floor debate on that bill to release the Epstein files, and that would come up later this week. Politico writing that President Donald Trump's call for House Republicans to support releasing Jeffrey Epstein-related documents was a stunning capitulation after a months-long campaign to block the vote. It was also a specific defeat for Trump at the hands of a despised GOP opponent, Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky. Massie said of Trump's U-turn in an interview Monday morning, "He got tired of me winning." That was from Politico. The group World Without Exploitation released a public service announcement over the weekend with victims of Jeffrey Epstein telling their stories and calling on the public to contact their members of Congress to tell them to vote to release the Epstein files related to the federal investigation of the late sex offender. Here's that ad.
I suffered so much pain.
So much pain.
So much pain.
I suffered so much pain. I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17.
14 years old.
This is me.
This was me.
This is me.
When I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
A public service announcement with victims of Jeffrey Epstein. The Hill writes a bipartisan group of House members is set to host survivors of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein for a Tuesday press conference. Congressman Ro Khanna, Democrat of California, Thomas Massie, Republican of Kentucky, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia, will gather at 9 a.m. Eastern Tuesday on Capitol Hill alongside survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse, according to a press release obtained by the Hill's sister network News Nation. The press conference will, quote, discuss next steps for Congressman Khanna and Congressman Massie's bipartisan bill, the Epstein Files Transparency Act, according to the release. That was from The Hill. This is Washington Today. News and Observer in South Carolina writing the U.S. Border Patrol arrested over 130 people on Saturday and Sunday after beginning an operation in Charlotte in which masked agents in paramilitary gear approached people in public places, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Criminal records of those arrested include known gang membership, aggravated assault, possession of a dangerous weapon, felony, larceny, simple assault, hit and run, possession of stolen goods, shoplifting, DUI, DWI, and illegal re-entry after prior deportation, a felony, according to a statement from DHS. The agencies have not released names or paperwork, so the claim could not be verified. It was unclear where people arrested had been taken. That was from the News and Observer in South Carolina. Governor Josh Stein, Democrat from North Carolina, posted a video on Sunday.
It's Josh Stein. I wanted to provide an update as Customs and Border Patrol agents have been in Charlotte over the weekend. My team and I have been in regular contact with state and local law enforcement to ensure that they have the resources that they need to keep you safe. Public safety is our top priority, and our well-trained local officers know their communities and are here for the long haul. On Friday, before Customs and Border Protection came to Charlotte, I encouraged North Carolinians to follow the law, remain peaceful, and bear witness to what you're seeing. Thank you, Charlotte, for answering that call. To the CBP, if you know that we have violent criminals in Charlotte who are undocumented, we want them out too. Everyone wants to be safe in their communities. But the actions of too many federal agents are doing the exact opposite in Charlotte. We've seen masked, heavily armed agents in paramilitary garb driving unmarked cars, targeting American citizens based on their skin color, racially profiling and picking up random people in parking lots and off of our sidewalks, going after landscapers simply decorating a Christmas tree in someone's front yard, and entering churches and stores to grab people. This is not making us safer. It's stoking fear and dividing our community. I want to say a word about immigration. We are a nation of immigrants, and our state and this country is stronger because of our immigrant communities. Unfortunately, our immigration system is broken. But rather than fix it, the federal government continues to play politics with it. It is long past time for Congress to act. We need strong borders. We must hold accountable and deport anyone who has committed a serious crime. And we must create a path to legal status for those who've been here a long time, paid their taxes, and followed the law, especially our dreamers who came to this country as very young children. North Carolina, I know this is a stressful moment, but please stay peaceful. And if you see something wrong, record it and report it to local law enforcement. That's what we can do for our neighbors to keep each other safe. That's the North Carolina way. Thank you.
Governor Josh Stein, Democrat of North Carolina, posting that video on Sunday. Houston Chronicle writing that Texas Governor Greg Abbott and other state and federal GOP officials met in Eagle Pass on Sunday to serve meals to Texas National Guard soldiers and state troopers who will be stationed along the Mexico border for Thanksgiving. Abbott addressed the troops at the Eagle Pass Border Security Base with U.S. Border Czar Tom Homan, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, Tennessee Governor Bill Lee, Missouri Governor Mike Keogh, and Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen. The group applauded the officers seated at tables with water, soda, and fall foliage for the role it said they had played in trimming illegal border crossings, halting criminals, steering away drugs, and saving lives throughout the U.S. That was from the Houston Chronicle. Here are the remarks at this event from U.S. Border Czar Tom Homan.
President Trump is going to keep his promise to the American people. Number one, he will secure the border. Number two, he will run the biggest deportation operation this country's ever seen. And three, we will find those 300,000 missing children that were smuggled in the country under Joe Biden, and they weren't even looking for it. They lost track of them. So where are we at? Because of President Trump, the greatest president of my lifetime, you have the most secure border in the history of the nation today. And you got a lot to do with that. Number two, we're into the year 650,000 deportations by the men and women of Border Patrol and ICE. That's a record. We beat the last record by a couple 100,000, and we're just getting started. We're bringing 10,000 more agents on. If you think the numbers look good this year, wait till next year, because you ain't seen it yet. Next year is going to be amazing. And we look at the children. 300,000 children were missing. Now, a lot of them aged out. We're going to still look for them. But as far as the children, Trump administration, President Trump, has already found over 24,000 of these young kids. Many of them are in sex trafficking, many are in forced labor. These are children that last administration wasn't even looking for. So God bless President Trump, the men and women of ICE and HHS for helping us find these kids. We will not give up until we find every one of them, or at least run every lead down we have. And when we're done, we're going to go back and do it again. We know at least 14 of these children have died. We know that some of these children we may not ever find. But I gave me this promise, we will not stop trying. Every day we'll be out there looking for them.
U.S. Border Czar Tom Homan at a Thanksgiving thank you dinner Sunday in Eagle Pass, Texas, with the National Guard troops that will be stationed at the border over Thanksgiving. And also the other governors of Texas, Tennessee, Missouri, Nebraska, and Virginia. Fox News writing the U.S. Supreme Court agreed to review an effort by the Trump administration to limit asylum processing claims from immigrants at the U.S.-Mexico border in an order issued Thursday. The key issue in the case, Nome v. Al Otro Lado, is over what constitutes arrival in the United States within the meaning of federal immigration law. The law provides that an alien who arrives may apply for asylum and must be inspected by an immigration officer. The legal question, however, is whether an immigrant arrives to begin the process for the asylum claim when meeting immigration officers on the U.S. side of the border or while still on the Mexican side. That was from Fox News. President Trump brought up immigration when asked today about Venezuela. And the Washington Post reporting the president said Sunday he's considering talks with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro as a buildup of U.S. forces in the region raises the prospect of military action in Venezuela. The suggestion of potential diplomatic outreach comes after weeks of escalating tensions in the Caribbean. The U.S. has deployed an armada of warships and thousands of American troops to the region, conducted lethal attacks on alleged drug trafficking boats, authorized covert CIA actions, and threatened land attacks in Venezuela. That was from the Washington Post. Here is President Trump in the Oval Office today.
You suggested you've made a decision about what you want to do next to Venezuela. I understand you don't want to tip your hand, but is there anything you're ready to rule out at this point? Are you ruling out U.S. troops on the ground?
No, I don't rule out that. I don't rule out anything. We just have to take care of Venezuela. They dumped hundreds of thousands of people into our country from prisons. Nobody knows better than this young lady right here. She's done an incredible job with Tom Homan and all of your people. It's amazing. You know, we have a tight border right now. Nobody comes in. But we had millions of people pouring through. A year ago, we had millions of people pouring through our border. And many of them came from Venezuela, including Tren de Aragua, the gang. And I guess what I'm hearing, Christy, is that's as bad a gang as there is anywhere.
It's the worst. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, they are the worst.
I mean, they're worse than MS-13.
They're killers. They massacre people. They cut them up into pieces and they bury them in their communities where they grew up. They're horrible people.
Now, we had a lot of them, and many of them, most of them, pretty soon, most of them are going to be out. But they sentimentally, like we're a dumping ground. So I'm not in love with the people running Venezuela. I love Venezuela. I love the people of Venezuela. But what they've done to this country, and I really say this, what Biden and the Democrats have done to this country can never, ever be forgotten.
You suggested Maduro wants to talk. Are you prepared to speak with him directly? Would you commit to doing that before you ordered strikes?
Yeah, I probably would talk to him. Yeah, I talk to everybody.
President Donald Trump in the White House Oval Office. You also heard from the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem. And the president also asked about Mexico, saying he would be willing to launch military strikes inside Mexico to combat drug trafficking, saying that such action is okay with me and whatever we have to do to stop drugs. Reuters reporting on Sunday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. would designate an alleged drug organization, Cartel de los Soles, as a foreign terrorist organization, which makes it a crime for anyone in the U.S. to provide material support to the group. U.S. officials have accused Cartel de los Soles of working with the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, which Washington previously designated a foreign terrorist organization to send illegal narcotics to the U.S. The Trump administration has alleged that the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro leads Cartel de los Soles, which Maduro has denied. That was from Reuters. Immigration was the original topic of the White House Oval Office meeting today. It was an update from the White House World Cup Task Force. The U.S., Mexico, and Canada will be co-hosting the 2026 World Cup. And there was an announcement that World Cup ticket holders will get prioritized U.S. visa appointments. Joining the Trump administration officials, the president of FIFA, the governing world body of soccer, Gianni Infantino.
I would like to start really by thanking you, Mr. President, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Noem, Andrew, your entire team for approving and making this very important announcement today. The FIFA Pass is being announced, the prioritized appointment scheduling system. That's the way people will remember it. So if you have a ticket for the World Cup, you can have a prioritized appointment to get your visa, because we said it the very first time we met, Mr. President, America welcomes the world. America will welcome the world here next year. We will have between 6 and 7 million tickets sold for the matches. We will have between 5 and 10 million people coming to America from all over the world to enjoy the World Cup. And with this FIFA Pass, we can make sure that those who buy a ticket that are legitimate football fans or soccer fans, they can come and attend the World Cup in the best conditions, starting from getting their visa and then coming, of course, in the country to enjoy. You mentioned the economic impact, the 30 billion, 200,000 jobs, and this is just for the World Cup, and we will build on that to make soccer even greater here. You are the #1 country in the world, the United States of America, Mr. President. You have to be the #1 country as well in the #1 sport in the world. So we have to work for that, and we will do that, and the World Cup will be very, very significant in this respect. So big thank you to you, to the White House Task Force, to everyone involved, and we are celebrating next year not just the 250 years, but also the greatest and most inclusive World Cup ever. We'll have 6 billion people watching. We have the draw coming up on the 5th of December here at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. 1 billion people watching the draw to find out who plays whom and where. We have 32 teams already qualified. Before or by tomorrow night, we'll have 42 out of 48 qualified. So a quarter of the world will be here, and we are looking very much forward. So thanks for the support, thanks for the great work, and always happy to be here at home, if I can say that.
You are. We are. This is a beautiful trophy right there.
Yeah.
You are. And a big part of it, too.
In the White House Oval Office, joining President Donald Trump and Trump administration officials, including the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino. The 2026 World Cup will be co-hosted by the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. The president saying today is expected to drive more than $30 billion. But then the president added, I don't know about that. That sounds like a lot of money. Washington Today continues in a moment.
Democracy. It isn't just an idea. It's a process shaped by leaders elected to the highest offices and entrusted to a select few with guarding its basic principles. It's where debates unfold, decisions are made, and the nation's course is charted. Democracy in real time. This is your government at work. This is C-SPAN, giving you your democracy unfiltered.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app and wherever you get your podcasts. A few more headlines from Associated Press. The Justice Department engaged in a disturbing pattern of profound investigative missteps in the process of securing an indictment against former FBI Director James Comey. A federal judge ruled Monday in directing prosecutors to produce to defense lawyers all grand jury materials from the case. Those problems, wrote Magistrate Judge William Fitzpatrick, include fundamental misstatements of the law by a prosecutor to the grand jury that indicted Comey in September, the use of potentially privileged communications during the investigation, and unexplained irregularities in the transcript of the grand jury proceedings. And from the Washington Post, David Richardson on Monday resigned as acting head of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, according to people familiar with the situation, ending a brief tenure leading an agency the administration had publicly expressed a desire to dismantle. Richardson, who spent about 6 months as the acting head of the nation's disaster response agency, kept a low profile and was known for frequently being inaccessible, including during the early hours of the flood disaster in Texas over the 4th of July weekend. That was from the Washington Post. And from the Hill, President Trump increased pressure Monday on Indiana Republicans, threatening to endorse against state lawmakers who oppose redistricting efforts ahead of the midterms. He wrote on Truth Social, "I will be strongly endorsing against any state senator or House member from the great state of Indiana that votes against the Republican Party and our nation by not allowing for redistricting for congressional seats in the United States House of Representatives, as every other state in our nation is doing. Democrats are trying to steal our seats everywhere, and we're not going to let this happen. This all began with the rigged census. We must keep the majority at all costs. Republicans must fight back." That was part of the post from President Donald Trump, as reported by The Hill. The U.S. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries was asked about this at his news conference on Capitol Hill today.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Earlier today, President Trump posted on Truth Social with regard, I'm trying to pull it up, with regard to the Indiana Republicans not redistricting their map, that Democrats are trying to steal seats everywhere, and we're not going to let that happen. I want to get your response to that. I also want to get your response to him saying we must keep the majority at all costs. How do you interpret that message, and do you believe that Democrats should fight back against that effort at all costs, or what lines are there for Democrats responding to this effort of Donald Trump pressing Indiana Republicans and other Republican state legislators to redraw their maps to kind of steal seats, as you've characterized it, from Democrats in 2026?
Yeah, we've made clear from the very beginning that as Democrats, we are not going to let Donald Trump and Republicans gerrymander congressional maps all across the country as part of their effort to rig the midterm elections. Why has Donald Trump launched this extraordinary and unprecedented effort to gerrymander congressional maps throughout the country? They're the ones that claim heading into this year they had this big, broad, beautiful mandate. Where is it? It was nowhere to be found on Election Day. Destroyed in Virginia, in New Jersey, in New York, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Mississippi, in California with Prop 50, up and down the ballot and all across the country. The reason why Donald Trump is in full panic mode is because he knows the majority in the House of Representatives is gone. And he's doing everything he can to try to cheat his way to an artificial victory. By the way, this same group of people, this is the lesson that they learned. We came into this year and everyone was talking about how the Democratic Party was dead. Really? As far as I could tell, in the House, the only reason why Republicans have their narrow majority right now is because they stole 3 seats from the people of North Carolina in mid-decade redistricting last year. That's the lesson that they've learned. Because their policies are unpopular, the outcomes are unpopular, they've delivered nothing for the American people. These folks have been a complete and total disaster. And Democrats are the ones leaning in to making life better for the American people, to driving down the high cost of living, to confronting the Republican healthcare crisis and cleaning up corruption so we actually can deliver a government that makes life better for the American people. So Donald Trump is in full and complete panic mode right now. And so he's lashing out at the people of Indiana, apparently, and beyond. Because these extremists didn't think that Democrats were going to forcefully respond. But I said it from this podium months ago when people were trying to suggest that Democrats did not have the capacity to deal with this issue. Guess what? We did. And now we've seen action in California. We're going to see action in other states like Virginia and Maryland and Illinois. We've seen action in Utah. We see a lawsuit in New York. We're going to continue to forcefully and creatively respond. It's not even clear that Republicans are going to net a single seat when this is all said and done. As a matter of fact, it might even be the opposite. And it will serve them well. They started this, we're finishing it.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York, at a news conference today on Capitol Hill. The national news desk writing that President Donald Trump is set to deliver remarks at the McDonald's Impact Summit, where he will discuss affordability with franchise owners of the fast food company on Monday night. During his 2024 presidential campaign, Trump served customers at a McDonald's drive-thru in Pennsylvania wearing an apron and scooping French fries. That was from the national news desk. The White House a White House official putting out a statement. The Biden administration started the affordability crisis, but President Trump will end it so all Americans can achieve economic prosperity. Wall Street today, the Dow down 557, S&P down 61, NASDAQ down 192. From Spectrum News, the nation's top health officials joined leaders of a major nonprofit food allergy research group Monday to call for action into the root causes of the immune response disease. Allergies affect 1 in 13 children and 1 in 10 adults in the U.S., according to the Food Allergy Fund, but their specific triggers aren't entirely clear. The FAF said Monday it will issue a request for research project proposals that will focus on developing new diagnostic tools, treatments, and prevention strategies. That was from Spectrum News. Ilana Gallant is the CEO of the Food Allergy Fund. She opened today's forum.
Food allergies may be the canary in the coal mine for chronic disease in America. When I started FAF just 5 years ago, I often met families whose children had only a few anaphylactic food allergies. But as time went on over the last few years, and as I met families with younger children, the list of allergens got longer, not shorter, as some would believe. The number of allergic diseases, comorbid diseases, and related gut immune diseases also got longer. Food allergies are reaching epidemic levels while receiving only the attention and investment of a rare disease. The Food Allergy Fund wants to close this gap by asking hard questions about why we're getting sicker and less tolerant, and to look at root causes rather than managing symptoms. We need to deploy innovation, technology, and scientific rigor to solve problems at scale. Here's the problem looking at Food Allergy Fund as a microcosm. Within the FAF Board of Directors and team of 14 people combined, we represent more than 30 types of anaphylactic food allergies, 6 comorbidities, and 3 autoimmune diseases. And the list goes on. Food allergies are not happening in isolation. They are a visible manifestation of something much deeper. Widespread microbiome dysregulation, thus fueling epidemic levels of chronic immune and autoimmune disease across our population. The same biological drivers of food allergies share pathways with autoimmune conditions, inflammatory diseases, and metabolic disorders affecting millions of Americans. We believe that progress happens when ideas and capital meet urgency and commitment. We fund diverse approaches from our drug repurposing program that can cut years off of the development timeline to connecting early-stage companies transforming the food allergy landscape with breakthrough technology. Today, in an unprecedented high-level commitment of federal attention, you will hear from HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., NIH Director Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, and NIAID Acting Director Dr. Jeffrey Taubenberger, ARPA-H Director Dr. Alicia Jackson, and FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty McCary, underscoring alignment across federal health agencies on food allergies, one of the most overlooked public health crises of this generation. Today, we're also announcing the launch of FAF's Microbiome Collective, a first-of-its-kind multi-million-dollar collaboration uniting leading research institutions to uncover the root causes of food allergies and related immune-driven diseases. You will hear shortly from leading microbiome experts advancing prevention and treatment not only for food allergy, but for conditions with lifelong gut health implications. We are grateful to the David Koch Jr. Foundation for its major gift to fuel the collective, as well as multiple strategic pillars of research at the Food Allergy Fund.
Ilana Gallant is the Food Allergy Fund CEO, opening today's forum in Washington, D.C. And here is part of her interview with Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
As you know, the whole world becomes hazardous. You send your child to a birthday party, and maybe the cake had, peanut oil, or somebody cooked in the same pan something with peanuts in it 2 days before. And so everything is a trap, and everything is a potential killer of your child. I really focused my mind on it. But, and I was focused on, okay, what are we going to do to treat it and to prevent him from getting sick? But I also, my mind immediately went to the place of, why is this happening? 5 of my 7 kids have allergies. What happened? Something happened. And it appears to have happened sometime around 1989, 1990. So you have to look at an environmental toxin that became ubiquitous during that year across all the different demographics, from Cubans in Key Biscayne, Miami, to Inuit in Alaska. Everybody started getting these allergies at that time. And why have there been no studies on that? Why are not people looking at that? Why isn't the entire scientific community focused on saying it's a very easy study to do? You make a list of all the potential culprits that fit those criteria, and then you begin eliminating them. But those studies have never been done. We are going to do them now, and we will identify what is causing these allergies.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at today's Food Allergy Fund Forum in Washington. He also previewed that new dietary guidelines could be published next month, saying we're ending the war on saturated fats in this country, and the guidelines are going to stress the importance of protein and saturated fats. And also, he said that will really revolutionize the food system in our country, the food culture in this country. This is Washington Today. Reuters reporting from Brazil that government ministers from around the world are preparing for a final few fraught days of talks at the United Nations Climate Summit as they bid to secure a deal that demonstrates global resolve amid increasing assertiveness from developing nations. The job will not be easy. Countries are now digging into some of the toughest issues, many of which have been left off the formal agenda to ensure the talks keep moving, even if one issue gets hung up. That was from Reuters. John Kerry, former Secretary of State under President Obama and former U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate under President Biden, now co-executive chair of Galvanize Climate Solutions, spoke about climate change and COP30 meeting in Brazil. John Kerry was in Washington at the Council on Foreign Relations.
The idea that America has some room to go, as indeed does China, on innovation, on climate tech innovation, energy innovation, what levers would you press if you could to help America in this challenge? As you say, everyone will win when clean energies flourish, I presume is your thesis, but what you said before, what does America need to do particularly to do better?
Well, I mean, America, do I separate America from the administration?
America's been around 250 years, so let's start with that. If you can.
Well, there's certain things that just aren't going to happen. I can sit here and say, here's what we ought to be doing. It's not going to happen for a period of time. The private sector is going to continue to move, and the private sector is going to do it because they see alpha, money. You're going to be able to make money. And because the marketplace globally is moving exactly in the way you described. Because Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and many other countries, Laos, Cambodia, and places, desperately need electricity. They desperately need deployment. There's a huge market out there, folks. I mean, the energy market is the largest market the world has ever known, ever. And it's bigger than the Industrial Revolution because we have to redo everything. We have to do grids. We don't even have a grid in the United States, by the way. We got an East Coast thing and a West Coast thing, and then Texas has its own thing. You got it. Yeah. Absolutely. And we can't send an electron from New York to California. That's insane in this day and age. And so how do we get our act? How do we get our act together to do those things? Yeah. Politics. That's unfortunately what it comes down to. You have to win elections. If you don't win elections and you don't have people in power who want to do something, it isn't going to happen. And there are far too many choke points. We were hopeful we were going to get permitting reform before I left the job.
Joe Manchin is still sore about that, but go on.
Well, we should have done it. It's insane not to have done it. And that's another thing. We can't send an electron across state lines because of politics. people get in the way, or not, they want their market share. They don't want any disruption in it. They don't want to compete for it, certainly. I can tell you in 28 years in the United States Senate, you'd be amazed at how many CEOs came into me and asked me to join in legislating their monopoly, even though they were, quote, conservatives and didn't believe in, seriously, it does come down to having an idea that wins.
John Kerry, former Secretary of State, former U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, former Democratic nominee for U.S. President, today at the Council on Foreign Relations in Washington, D.C., talking about what's happening in Brazil, COP30, the United Nations Climate Summit. Interviewed by Vijay Vaitheswaran, the Economist Global Energy and Climate Innovation Editor. AP reporting from COP30, battered by last month's ferocious climate-fueled hurricane, Jamaica joined other small island nations and impoverished countries at Monday's UN climate talks to implore the rest of the world to stop talking and start acting. Their message, lives are on the line. In addition, they renewed a long-standing call for rich nations to do more financially to help poor countries deal with warming. That was from AP. Also from AP at the United Nations Day, the UN Security Council set to vote Monday on a U.S. plan for Gaza that would provide international backing for a stabilization force and envisioning a possible future pathway to an independent Palestinian state. But a big question remains, will Russia veto it? After nearly 2 weeks of negotiations on the U.S. resolution, Russia suddenly circulated a rival proposal late Thursday that would strip out reference to a transitional authority meant to be headed by President Donald Trump and asked the United Nations chief to provide options on an international force to provide security in Gaza. That was the AP story going into today's vote, and it turns out Russia did not veto it. The resolution passed, and after the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Michael Waltz, made some remarks.
We have all bound together, recognizing the urgency of the situation and for swift adoption to deny Hamas any opportunity to reconstitute and to ensure that the people of Gaza can be fed. Today's resolution represents another significant step towards a stable Gaza that will be able to prosper and an environment that will allow Israel to live in security. The Board of Peace, which will be led by President Trump, remains the cornerstone of our effort. The board will coordinate the delivery of humanitarian assistance, facilitate Gaza's development, and support a technocratic committee of Palestinians responsible for day-to-day operations of Gaza's civil service and administration, while the Palestinian Authority fully implements its reform program. The resolution today provides troop-contributing countries with the framework they need for moving forward with the International Stabilization Force and global financial institutions the mechanisms they need for channeling investment, respectively. The former will support a region free from Hamas's grip, and the latter, Gaza's reconstruction and development. The path to prosperity, colleagues, requires security first. Security is the oxygen that governance, that development needs to live and to thrive. The International Stabilization Force will stabilize the security environment, support the demilitarization of Gaza, dismantle terrorist infrastructure, decommission weapons, and maintain the safety of Palestinian civilians. We believe that the investment that will follow adoption today will revitalize Gaza's economy, providing Palestinians with an opportunity instead of saddling them with perpetual reliance on aid. We look forward to working alongside the World Bank to that end as it supports Gaza's long-term redevelopment, even as we address the immediate and dire humanitarian needs. President Trump's historic 20-point plan marked the beginning of what will be a strong, stable, and prosperous region, united in rejecting the path of violence, hatred, and terror.
Michael Waltz, the United States ambassador to the United Nations, speaking at the UN Security Council after the resolution backed by the United States to advance President Donald Trump's peace plan for Gaza passed. Newsweek writing that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday said Israel's opposition to a Palestinian state has not changed. a day before the UN Security Council set to vote on the U.S. drafted resolution that notes, following certain reforms, there may be a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. Thanks for listening to Washington Today. Sign up for C-SPAN's evening newsletter word for word. We'll send you the stories making headlines in Washington. Subscribe at cspan.org/connect. Have a good night.